Hey guys, it's Wednesday, April 8th. Quick note, on the last video, I only went through page 189 with you. You're also supposed to read through page 191. A quick note on these videos, anytime there's a discrepancy between the video and the worksheet, the assignment sheet that we hand you, always follow the written word. So anytime there's a discrepancy, please make sure you follow what's on your assigned papers. The videos are just extra practice, and sometimes we misrecord these. So page 193 through 198 is what you guys are doing today. And I'm going to start there talking about promise and performance in the command economy. The first part here says governments can crush market economies and their traditional social and political orders by, then they list these bullet points. So today what we're talking about is basically the idea of command economies. Now this is completely different to capitalistic economies and societies. We're talking about the idea of government control much greater than what we talk about in America today. So let's talk about some of these ways they can destroy market economies. It says the confiscation of private property, the restraint of economic competition, governmental monopolization of production and distribution, control of consumption through forced rationing, the strict control or abolition of labor unions, nationalization of banking systems, and the governmental determination of wages. So the idea of capitalism is the idea of laissez-faire. And laissez-faire basically means let it alone. Let the market determine things. And we see that's why we have business cycles. It's self-regulating in a capitalistic society. But when you talk about a command economy, it's completely different. You have the government manipulating things on an absurd level that really influences the economy. And many times we've learned in the past that whenever the government tries to manipulate the economy, many times it doesn't work. There are very few instances where this actually works. A great example is in the Great Depression. What we had was the Fed with low interest rates whenever the economy was great. And what that caused was an increase in borrowing and using that money to invest into a stock market, right? But then, as soon as the economy took a downturn, when people actually needed their loans and needed money, the Federal Reserve actually tightened the ability to get money and raised the interest rates. So the government manipulation by the Federal Reserve actually worsened the problem of the initial Great Depression. Now we've learned from that, and the Federal Reserve today doesn't operate the same way. In fact, they operate the exact opposite way. That's why in this current recession that the economy is in, the Federal Reserve dropped the rates instead of tightening them. But we had to learn that the hard way. So keep that in mind, that government manipulation typically doesn't work to a certain extent, so you need to make sure you understand that command economies really have a pretty bad track record throughout history. So let's talk about the idea of nationalism. So your book gives the definition of nationalism, and they throw an extra line in here to what I typically memorize. But it says nationalism is the promotion of one's own nation and government regardless of moral consideration. And I think whenever you throw in the regardless of moral consideration there, it definitely changes the meaning. So the very first part, the promotion of one's own nation and government, that's not a bad thing, right? The idea that you want your government and your economy to do well, your people to do well, but whenever it gets to the point where you're saying regardless of moral consideration, that's completely different. Now, I don't think that everybody recognizes that definition the same way, but for the sake of your book, that's what they have the definition as. At the extreme end of the spectrum are the totalitarian command economies of communist nations, where all major means of production belong to the political state. Communism is an economic system based upon public ownership and governmental control of the production and distribution of nearly all natural resources. The communist philosophy states that everything belongs to the state and that the state has the power to control all of a country's wealth. The declared economic aim of the communists is to create an economic system in which everyone shares equally. Communists maintain that the capitalism found in market economies must be totally destroyed to make way for their revolutionary new system. Alright, so when we talk about a communist government, it's said clearly that the communist economies and command economies believe that they have complete rights to all of the wealth and natural resources within a nation. So in reality, all of what you had would be given to you by the federal government. And many people fall into the trap of this system, especially the extreme poor of countries, because they feel like the government will do a better job of providing them with their needs than what the current system has done. And this is how most communist nations come to be. The truth is that most natural resources and economies do not provide very well when it comes to this stuff. So let's talk about Karl Marx. It says, communists, also referred to as Marxists, have long looked at the work of Karl Marx, who formulated the basic ideas of communism and advocated the overthrow of the free market. In order to establish equality, you must first establish inequality, Marx wrote in his famous book Das Kapital, which was published in 1867. Through writings such as this, he maintained that to achieve communism, there must first be violent political revolution in which the bourgeois, or property owners, would be overthrown, and next would come the dictatorship of the proletariat, or the common working class, at which time the nation would be strictly ruled by officials who would act on behalf of the people. So when they say bourgeois, what that means is the property owners, the people who have stuff to themselves, private property owners. So the idea of communism is that you have to overthrow those people first, and then you have ruling by the proletariat. In reality, this almost never happens the way that the definition is given, because the proletariat don't typically wind up ruling any more than they did before. It might be a common man that was part of the proletariat at first, but the second that someone gets power, it tends to corrupt them, and that's almost the truth with every communist regime that's ever came to power. So we've seen that throughout history. So moving on, you're going to read the rest of this here. You're going to read all the way through page 198, and you guys are going to do your homework today on page 198, 1 through 3, and number 5, and page 201, numbers 1, 3, and 4. And remember, if there's ever a discrepancy between the videos and the assignments that we hand out in the packets, always follow the assignments in the packets. Love you guys. We got one more day this week and a Good Friday on Friday. I'll catch you later. See you later.